Iran nuke deal will cause Israel to have their back against the wall because they will be isolated. They will feel alone. They'll feel like their only chance to survive is to take out these nuclear facilities in Iran as they pursue a nuclear weapon that could wipe Israel out. So just to ensure their survivability, they're going to have to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Just like they struck in 1981 in Iraq, Saddam Hussein's nuclear facilities, and in 2007 in Syria. They took them out. Now Iran poses a much bigger challenge given the distance and the numerous targets. See, in Iraq and Syria, there was just one target. Pretty easy. Go in, hit it, leave. In Iran, there's at least 13 high priority targets and as many as 37 pretty medium priority targets, but there's about 120 targets altogether. So they have to pick and choose which ones they're going to go after. And they have this deadline of by the end of this year, by about, well, according to Iran, they're going to get these S-304 missile defense systems from Russia within the next month. So that kind of pushes the deadline up a little bit. So we'll keep watching, we'll keep praying, but we know it's all in God's hands. Here's something new out of Reuters. Exclusive story says Russian troops join combat in Syria. Russia now has the first troops on the ground in Syria. That's pretty important to know, but even bigger than that is the fact that Russia is supporting Bashar Assad. Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but America is supporting the other side. So we've got Russia on one side, we've got America on the other side. I mean, how long before these two fighting against a common enemy on the other side fight each other? I'm always reminded what Daniel 7 verse 5 says when it talks about the bear that was told to arise and devour much flesh. And we know, I'm quite confident that Russia is the bear spoken of in this passage. So I find it fascinating. I just find it fascinating. So Russian forces have been participating in military operations in Syria in support of Bashar Assad and the government troops. 3 Lebanese sources familiar with this political and military situation there said this yesterday. They spoke to Reuters on the condition they not be identified because they'd probably be dead the next day if they were. Russia sent 2 tank landing ships and additional cargo aircraft to Syria in the past day or so and deployed a small number of naval infantry forces. So, of course, the White House is watching this very closely, as I'm sure many other countries and groups are. So it's interesting to see what's heating up. Here's something out of Yahoo. It says at least 3 huge Russian military planes land in Syria. They're transport planes. They landed in Syria. Washington's worried that Russia is supplying all sorts of assistance to Damascus. Now, again, this kind of adds another player that could possibly destroy Damascus because Russia's there. And if they're fighting for Bashar Assad, what if the invading forces are all over Damascus and their only opportunity is to nuke Damascus? Then we'd see Isaiah 17:1 prophecy unfold in front of our eyes. So, again, I know they've been fighting there for some 5 years and over 300,000 dead, but most of the pictures I see of Damascus today, it already looks like a ruinous heap. I mean, Google pictures of Damascus and see if you can find any that have windows in the building still, because most of them are blown out. Most of them have streets that are filled with rubble. There's coming a day when you're going to wake up and see the headline, Damascus destroyed. It's coming, and I think very soon. Out of the New York Times, U.S. moves to block Russian military buildup in Syria. United States moved to head off preparations for a suspected Russian military buildup in Syria as Bulgaria agreed to an appeal from the Obama administration to shut its airspace to Russian transport planes. Wow. Bulgaria being the middleman for the United States against Russia. That's pretty tricky. Lots of interesting developments going on these days. Out of the Jerusalem Post, out of Israel, Netanyahu tells the EU, hey, stop pressuring us into agreements that endanger our existence. You know, this two-state solution everyone's trying to push on Israel would basically be suicide for Israel because they would not be able to defend themselves. Part of Israel would be less than 6 miles wide for their whole country. 6 miles wide. You can't really defend that, especially when you have enemies surrounding you that have rockets that can reach every part of Israel already. Europe seeks to unilaterally press Israel into agreements that will endanger our very existence and therefore your very defense, Netanyahu told visiting European Council President Donald Tusk. It's true. I mean, if the world forces Israel to give up their God-given biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria that the world conveniently likes to call the West Bank because it removes the whole biblical reference to it, and give up half of Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount, the holiest place for the Jewish people, this would be political suicide. This would be suicide for the Jewish people. They're not going to give in to that. But it's going to be interesting to see just exactly how they try to obtain peace with the Palestinians. You know, Mahmoud Abbas said he was going to do away with the Oslo Accords yesterday. Well, today, out of the Jerusalem Post, the United States tells Mahmoud Abbas, don't cut security ties with Israel. United States administration warned Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas against suspending security coordination with Israel, Palestinian sources said yesterday. The U.S. and some other European Union and Arab countries were also putting pressure on Abbas to delay a meeting of the PLO's parliament in exile, the Palestinian National Council. This is just kind of fun to watch. I'm curious to see what's going to happen at the UN later this month. Speaking of Netanyahu, here's something out of global research. I saw this petition passing around a few weeks ago, but over 100,000 Brits want Benjamin Netanyahu arrested. He's scheduled to arrive in London tomorrow. Actually, today, September 9th. So they want him arrested. They say he was responsible for war crimes and mass destruction against Gaza last summer, forgetting that Gaza started it by launching rockets into civilian